Afternoon, folks. I'm doing a tribute to President Richard Milhous Nixon, and it's Friday afternoon, supper hour, the second day of August 2024. Next Friday, a week from today, and a sad, fateful morning, President Nixon addressed the nation and resigned the presidency of the United States. And actually had a press conference the night, a direct address from the Oval Office. He said, "I shall resign the following morning." So he resigned the following morning. And he said to the staff, there's a big staff at the White House, very loyal staff. He said, if others hate you and you hate them back, then they win. It's like jealousy or envy, greed. If other people are jealous or greedy with you, well, and you hate them back, jealous back of them, you lose. They take something out of you. Frank Sobey told somebody who worked closely with him, he said, if somebody does something to you, and he gentleman worked with 11 years, him and his wife, and he said, Mr. Sobey went like this: somebody does something, leave it go, or it'll eat you out internally. So President Nixon was a very good president. They can go on all they want. The liberal media and the fake news, as we call them now. There's no question the election that he ran in 1960 was the first stolen election. No question. They taken old Joe Kennedy, who was, if Joe Kennedy was alive now, he'd be a cocaine dealer. He was involved in anything crooked. Okay, anything crooked. Joe Kennedy, as John F. said, and John F. Kennedy, he was a piece of trash. I repeat that. John F. Kennedy was a piece of trash. He was every bit as horny as Bill Clinton, and as faithful to Bill, he was faithful to. He was as faithful to Jacqueline as Bill was on multiplications to Hillary Clinton. Anyway, back to the hero of the hour. Hero of the hour, President Richard M. Nixon. People forget what a remarkable man he was. He was born in Yoma Linda, California, a working class family. He served his nation well. He served our country well during World War II. And he was congressman and was he senator as well? Governor, I should know that. Congressman at least. But he was picked in the 50s by President Eisenhower to be his vice president. And President Eisenhower, of course, he got elected in 52. He said, I like Ike, General Eisenhower. Okay, so Ike. And so his vice president was Richard Nixon, a very capable cat, young man. So he died in 1994 at 81. So you go back 40 years, he'd be 41. Okay. He was 38 or 39 when he was elected vice president. That was remarkable. He served 2 terms. And President Eisenhower, Dwight D. Eisenhower, had a heart issue and had a heart attack when office. And President Nixon was de facto president. In 1960, he offered a Republican nomination, Party of God, God's Own Party, which stands for GOP, stands for God's Own Party. And he was successful in getting it. And he ran against Kennedy. And he supposedly lost by 100,000 votes. Okay, nationwide. That's a minuscule amount. And they had the mafia, and they had the corrupt labor unions, Jimmy Hoffa, and all those gangsters. And they were gangsters. That's not just slang. Jimmy Hoffa was a gangster with a capital G, all capital letters. And and supposedly lost by 100,000 votes. And he came back in 68. He got the presidential nomination again, and he won. And he won again in 72, big time. Then there was Watergate. That's what people made a big thing of. It wasn't that big thing at all, but they made a big thing of it. And I can distinctly remember that morning, Aunt Hattie was home from Boston, and we had little television, which had been given to us Aunt Hattie gave us one, and Mrs. Gurney Jordan gave us one. I had no TV until I was 7 years old. So I'm at 1974. It's 50 years next Friday. And we watched, she sat in the Chesterfield living room. We watched a little television up on the wooden stand my father had made from plywood. And Aunt Hattie cried. And it wasn't, and Aunt Hattie didn't, very solid lady, not fizzed her. She's one of the most unflappable women I've ever met, ladies ever met. And she shed tears. President Nixon was a very good president. He inherited the Vietnam War. Yes, advisors went in under the president in the 50s, Indochina, Vietnam, went in under President Eisenhower. It ramped up a lot bigger under this John F. Kennedy bird, and it reached its height under Lyndon Baines Johnson. And it come to an end under President Nixon. And actually, that sad day in April, I think it was April 30th, 1974, President Nixon would resign May, June, July, well, 3.5 months after that, barely. And this fake news, this liberal media, go on and on and on. The dirtbag Democrats, the PBS, the NBC, slimebags. They take, and he was a very good president. His brothers had some disease. What was it? They died young, several of them. And his mother was a remarkable woman. His father was a very good man too. He came from a working class family, and he was remarkable on foreign policy. My God, he just understood foreign policy so well. Actually, he had a rehabilitation of sorts. This other saintly president, President Ronald Reagan, would phone him up and consult him on foreign policies in the 80s. Okay, so it was quite a turnaround for it. President resigned 6 years prior. In the early 80s, President Ronald Reagan would phone him up and consult himself. A remarkable man. He had a very, very keen sense of America's place in the world, our nation, our responsibilities in the world, and foreign policy. He also was the first president that started to make breakthroughs in the South. The South, a few weeks ago, made a comment that we haven't seen the Democrats so upset. Somebody I plagiarized it. Haven't seen the Democrats upset with Republicans since the Republicans freed all their slaves. And so the Dixiecrats came in. The South voted from 1864 to 100 and some years. They voted solid Democrat. President Richard M. Nixon was the first president to start to make breakthroughs in the South. Saintly Strawn Tournament from South Carolina came on board. Okay, he was a Dixiecrat, and he became on board as Republican. And we started to make Ronald Reagan, the blue-collar Republicans, okay, come on big. And under President Trump, of course, the South now is seen as solid Republican grounds, which it is for most states. But back 50 years ago, actually 56 years ago, when President Reagan, on my mind, another saintly president, President Nixon ran in 68, 56 years ago, that was very Democrat territory, all those southern states. And so he was a remarkable man. He died in 1994 at 81, and it's 50 years ago, 1 week from today, since he resigned. And think of the humiliation to have to resign the President of the United States, a country he served so well and loved so dearly, and was elected to 2 terms, didn't finish. He had some difficulty with Spiro Agnew. So how did it go? Spiro Agnew was difficulty there, and he left, and President Nixon picked Gerald R. Ford, a Republican congressman from Grand Rapids, Michigan, by Ada, Michigan, the headquarters for wonderful company Amway Corporation, which I was a distributor for a number of years, starting at age 14. And he was picked as president. as vice president. When President Nixon resigned on that fateful day of August 9th, 1974, President Ford became president, and he picked the vice president, who would have been Nelson Rockefeller. And he almost won the election in 76. He was 30 points behind, and by the time election day rolled around, that damn Jimmy Carter, he only won by a few points. He was 30 points behind. He gave a presidential pardon to President Nixon. It was the right thing to do. Would have torn the country apart otherwise. And he's gone down in history as another great president, President Gerald R. Ford. Okay, he lived I think about 90. He very elderly gentleman, solid character as can be. Again, so with that, we pay tribute to President Richard M. Nixon, who served our country so well in the military, as vice president, as presidential candidate, and two terms elected, served a term and a half, and a wonderful man. So all the best. God bless the saintly President Richard M. Nixon, and the people that criticized him. It's like the people that criticized President Trump. They're a bunch of fucking slimebags. Okay? Dirtbags, slimebags with no character at all. President Richard M. Nixon had character, and he was a very good man. And with that, I've gone on quite a while, so I'm going to wrap this up. And I wish you all the best. God bless. And God bless now up in heaven with his wonderful wife, Pat, President Richard M. Nixon. Thank you. Bye for now.